Oh man, Eastern companies are leaving the West. I love this. I think that a lot of people have taken notice that a lot of games look the same, sound the same, play the same, smell the same. And a lot of this is coming from an oppressive culture driven by middle management midwits that believe that their opinions, their values, their beliefs, their worldviews need to be reflected in all forms of media. And it's turned into a sort of soft censorship. Most of these issues, nearly all of them, are being exported from here in the U.S., my home soil, the good U.S. of A. And these guys are so self-absorbed. They don't care about what it takes to make a good game. They don't care about the audience. The only thing that they can think about is shareholders, their personal or political leanings, and their incompetence and their influence doesn't just extend to their games, it's now extended overseas. And this has turned into a sort of cultural erasure. We're going to call it colonization because, we're pretty good at that. And the East is sick of it. They don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. So you have companies like Square Enix that are closing down shop, they're laying off workers, and they're consolidating their efforts back in Japan because they feel like that's the best place for them to be making games. And the funny thing is that for whatever reason, nobody has taken notice that this has been going on for a while now. 5 years in the making. Japan is not alone in this. No, you've had companies in China, companies in Korea, as well as other companies in Japan that have been pulling their efforts out of the West and bringing them back home. Trimming the fat, so to say. So today I want to talk about why that's happening. I want to talk about why Japan's biggest publisher is pulling back. I want to talk about why Japan's government is telling their artists to stop taking notes from the West, and why I think this is going to start a creative split that we haven't seen since the 90s. And it couldn't happen any sooner. This video is sponsored by boot.dev, the smartest way to learn how to code without getting bored. Sometimes I'll just flip through boot.dev lessons, not because I'm trying to make my own game, but because I want to understand how games are actually made. It's crazy to see how much logic and structure goes into a lot of these systems that we take for granted. And honestly, I think more people should give it a shot. We have seen so many wild indie success stories lately, solo developers turning side projects into full careers. I think it would be great to see somebody from my own community do the same. Boot.dev makes learning feel like a game. You build real projects in Python, SQL, and Go, earn XP, level up, and even fight bosses as you learn. And the best part is, this stuff actually pays. The median salary for backend developers in the US last year was just over $100,000. Not bad for learning something that starts as a hobby. It's completely free to read and watch every course, and if you want to unlock the interactive coding, AI tutor, and progress tracking, that's where the subscription comes in. Go to boot.dev or click the link in the description and use my code LegendaryDrops to get 25% off your first year on an annual plan. You can also just scan the QR code on screen. It'll take you straight there with the discount automatically applied. Thank you to boot.dev for sponsoring today's video. A lot of games media has spent the past couple of years mourning the layoffs, the studio closures, the failed games. They've been blaming the economy, inflation, tariffs, whatever the trending excuse is for that quarter. But what I don't think a lot of people have understand, or at least caught on to, is that this is not an industry-wide collapse. It's not global. I think what we're watching right now is the Western games apocalypse. It's one that's built on greed, idealism, ego, and the slow erasure of individualism in a space that used to thrive on distinct voices. You can feel it in just about everything that comes out from a AAA publisher today. These games do not carry the identity of the people or the studios that are making them. No, they carry the identity of one culture center, one value system. And because of that, they're getting trapped in this binary state. Either you have a game that is designed purely to wring as much money out of its customers as possible, or you have a game that's pushing a set of values, trying to win points in a culture that's more polarized than it's ever been. Profit over enjoyment on one side, moral projection on the other. What this has led to is more and more games, whether made in the West or simply influenced by the West, and they're releasing to an audience that simply doesn't exist. The same thing is happening in movies and TV. This isn't some hit piece on anyone's beliefs or values, by the way. People can believe whatever they want to. The issue is when the expectation is that everybody else is required to bend to them, agree to them, and then pay for content that's built around selling someone else's worldview. This would be fine if it all stayed in the West, but of course it didn't. Whether it's the obsession with live service or the urge to export values the same way we export entertainment, this mindset has pushed itself into Eastern studios too, and the result has been pretty predictable. Bad localization, censorship, outright bans, forced adjustments to character designs and art. You don't have to be a part of any culture war to get hit in the crossfire. You just got to be making games or playing games, and slowly, piece by piece, these studios have been surrendering parts of themselves, parts of their own identity, because somebody else decided that their work needed to fit into a Western mold of what's acceptable. And this is something that I think was echoed perfectly by the creator of Dragon Quest last year when he was asked why designs for Dragon Quest III Remake were being censored.
色するとね、年齢が上がっちゃうっていうね。全年齢じゃなくなってしまうっていうのがあったりとか。
ルールがやっぱなんか各国違ったりするんでね、広く売ろうと思うと一番厳しいところに合わせざるを得ないとか。
でも
当時そんなこと思わなかったですけどね。
コンプラっていう名のね、やっぱりね、ある種のね、なんだろうな、絶対心というべき、善の名を借りた悪みたいなのがある。全員が不快感を覚えないなんてことはないわけ。
Under the name of compliance, it's like an absolute god and evil disguised as good. Man, that line goes so hard. You know this dude makes banger games. We went from starting wars over oil to telling girls to put on a shirt. My deepest apologies to the rest of the world. This brand of ideologically driven censorship is not just coming from Western game studios, it's coming from ratings boards, governments, and worst of all, credit card companies. These are the people who are basically telling these artists and these creators, bend to our values or we will break you financially. And the irony is that even with all this self-censorship, even with all the compromised creative directions, these companies are still losing money, a lot of money, because nobody wants to buy the end result. And those financial losses have not stayed contained. They have sent shockwaves across the ocean. Eastern governments are finally starting to wake up to what's happening, and they're actually doing something about it. Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry stepped up to defend its creative industries, especially games, manga, and anime, pushing growth while rejecting Western interference and restrictions being forced on them by global platforms and payment processors. The ministry's new policy lays out 5 key principles: large-scale, long-term strategic support, support for spreading Japan-made content globally, no interference in content of creative works, direct support for creators and companies, prioritizing those willing to take risks. And now I love to see a government actually stepping up to protect its local industries. And the best part is these guys are not doing it alone. No, these companies are starting to fight back too, not with speeches, but with their budgets. Because when the West is trying to bully you into submission, you got to remember there's only one language to speak, and that language is money. Stop investing in them, stop hiring them, stop relying on them, and they will change their tune. And that's exactly what some of these Eastern game companies have started doing. Every major publisher in the East has been systematically rolling back their Western footprint, consolidating their efforts back home. In 2024, Nexon laid off hundreds of workers at Nexon America under the banner of exciting IP growth strategy. Tencent has closed 3 Western studios and laid off hundreds of workers. NetEase shut down 6 Western studios, adding to more than a dozen closures since 2022. And now, Square Enix is joining them. In an article from IGN written by Rebecca Valentine titled, "Square Enix Undergoes Mass Layoffs as it Reorganizes to Consolidate Development in Japan," Rebecca writes, via public posts from former employees as well as confirmation from internal sources, IGN has learned that employees in the UK and the US are being informed of layoffs today, with an unknown number of US employees being dismissed by the end of the week and a possible 137 jobs at risk in the UK. Under UK law, Square Enix must undergo redundancy consultations to see if any jobs can potentially be saved, so the final number in the UK can be smaller. It's not clear yet which teams will be impacted by this or to what extent. Internally, a slide presentation, now publicly available, was also shared with employees earlier today, offered a progress report on Square Enix's ongoing reorganization of overseas organizations, of which this restructuring seems to be a part of. Per Square Enix, this strategy already involved closing overseas development studios and shifting towards consolidating development functions in Japan. As a part of this, Square Enix already sold off Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Square Enix Montreal, and a number of associated IPs to Embracer Group. It also laid off workers across its Western operations in 2024. That leaves Square Enix with Life is Strange, Outriders, and the Just Cause franchises currently being managed by its Western studios, as well as publishing of the Power Wash Simulator. I mean, can you blame them? Think about the kind of money that Square Enix is burning just by keeping these Western teams afloat. We're talking about studios that are getting paid Silicon Valley rates to churn out flops and drag the company's overall performance as well as their reputation. I saw a salary comparison last year that blew my mind. The average starting salary for a game developer in San Francisco was over $100,000. In Tokyo, it's less than $20,000. One American developer cost them the equivalent of 5 Japanese developers. Or, depending on how you want to look at it, one American developer is actively contributing to why Japanese developers are getting paid so little. That's what Western expansion looks like on a balance sheet. And look at the franchises they just mentioned. Just Cause hasn't mattered in ages. Outriders exploded out of the gate and then just immediately collapsed. And Life is Strange. Listen, I'm not going to judge anybody. It's just not my type of game. But even then, how many times do we have to hear 20 million players? What does that even mean? Are those downloads, promotions? Is it Game Pass? There's commercial performance there, I'm sure, but I'm not sure that it's trending upward. No matter how many spin-offs or different DLCs they put out, it just hasn't caught on after that. Almost every single Western developed, Western published, or Western influenced project that Square Enix has touched has lost money. Marvel's Avengers was a generational disaster. Babylon's Fall died instantly, and Forspoken, man, I don't even know where to start with that one. But I do know why it happened. Misplaced influence, misplaced values, misplaced confidence, people pretending to represent the audience when they only want to represent themselves, and that mindset, that slow, creeping, boardroom-approved ideological drift spread through Square Enix like a cancer. It erased their identity, their voice, and their sense of artistry. It turned a company that has been known for some of the most imaginative games on the planet into one that couldn't stop greenlighting projects that nobody asked for. And when those losses kept piling up, I think they woke up. I think they finally realized they were being pulled in the wrong direction, not just in the West, but inside their own walls in Japan, because that influence didn't stay overseas. It bled into the creative core of the company, and that's when the alarm bell started ringing. These publishers are doing exactly what they need to be doing right now. While there's still a few Western developers and Western studios and Western games that are absolutely fantastic, these are studios that are living outside of the machine. They're not chained to the social political nightmare that we are entered into almost every single day. And while I'm sure this message won't reach you, you're doing the right thing. We need some time alone. Think about how much pressure these guys are under right now. They have ratings boards that are censoring them for showing too much skin. They have credit card companies that are withholding their money, cutting their distribution, delisting their games, or just outright flatlining their sales. The government are bought out by these credit card companies, and then you have Western media that is going to drag their games if they don't align with their ideological views. They're getting it from every single end. I couldn't imagine how these guys could take it any longer. No wonder they're fed up right now. This is the best thing that they can do. Absolutely, it's the best thing that they can do. They need to quarantine themselves. And better yet, the best way to be able to fix the West is stop letting them get a piece of the pie. Stop giving them money. Stop giving them jobs. I mean, look at how fast the manga and anime industries have grown over the past couple of years. I mean, the Chainsaw Man movie and the Demon Slayer movie absolutely just destroyed at the box office. All you got to do is wait them out. They'll come crawling back. They just need to make their own games. Don't listen to anybody else. Ignore everything that's going on over here. If you just make your own games, I can promise you it's probably going to be the best games that you've made in the past decade. We're going to buy it. I can tell you that right now. We actually already know that's the case. Because for all of the studios that have ignored any of this Western influence or any of the censorship that a lot of these guys have been put under, any of these people that are making games that are unapologetically Korean or Japanese or Chinese, every single one of these guys have found success. Too many games feel the same. There is so little distinction left between where any of these games are coming from that more than half the time, the only real identifier we have is the damn company logo. One of the clearest moments for me where this all just kind of hit me like a truck was Expedition 33. Sandfall is a French studio. That was a French game. That game didn't just have a French coat of paint, it lived in that artistic spirit. When I think of French art, I think of wild abandon, melancholy, and desperation, an obsession with creative expression. And Expedition 33, that game just carried it like oxygen. But of course it did, because that game came from a small team working outside the high walls of the modern games industry, far and away from all these committees and these shareholders that are just flattening everything into the same shape. Now we compare that to Ubisoft, the biggest French publisher in the world, and honestly, can any of you guys tell me or point out anything that just feels French in any of their products? I'm not saying that these games need to be stereotypically French. I don't need to be having mimes doing stealth kills, though that does actually sound kind of cool, but look at their earlier work. Rayman, Prince of Persia, the first few Assassin's Creed games, there was a real sense of craftsmanship there, a voice. You could see it in the artistry. They still have some flashes like that with Anno, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, and Rogue, but those are crumbs. Those aren't the focus. When you look at their main output, Rainbow Six, X-Defiant before it died, Far Cry, The Division, whatever their annualized Assassin's Creed game is going to be, there is nothing French about any of it. There's barely anything distinct about it. Ubisoft has been copying their American competitors for years, dancing to the same tune as EA and Activision, and they aren't alone in doing it. Other publishers have been doing the same. This all started for one simple reason, money. And honestly, fair enough. You want to make what sells. Military shooters and open world games for printing cash, so everybody's going to follow that trend. That's globalization 101. Bend your product's identity to sell to the biggest consumer market, and that market was the US, and the US sits on top of the global GDP charts, and almost 70% of that is coming from consumer spending. We buy a ridiculous amount of stuff, so if you're a company anywhere in the world, of course you're going to want to sell to Americans. And for a while, the studios that pander to American audiences made an absurd amount of money doing it. But what happens when Western audiences stop liking Western games? Because that's exactly where we are today, and I think that's a sign that this industry desperately needs to go back to its roots. And I think this split between the East and the West, with these Eastern publishers consolidating their efforts back home, I think that's going to get us there. If you guys want to know what I mean by going back to your roots, just look back to the last time this industry faced a split like this, back in the 1990s. That was the last era where the East and the West were not trying to copy each other. They weren't trying to appeal to the same audience, the same reviewers, the same value systems. These guys are just making games the way that they made games. Japan was not looking over their shoulder at America. They weren't thinking about global markets, Western censorship, or what any of these ratings boards would have to say. They were just locked into their own culture, their own imagination, their own voice. And what came out of that era? Some of the best games ever made. Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Metal Gear, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Chrono Trigger, all these games built on identity, not trend chasing. Meanwhile, the West had their own thing going on. Doom, Ultima, Fallout, Half-Life, an explosion of PC games that had nothing to do with what Japan was making. Two creative ecosystems, two identities, two visions, and both were thriving. Nobody was trying to homogenize anything. Nobody was being told to appeal to anyone because they didn't need to. And that's the part that people forget. The last time that Japan ignored the West, well, they entered into their golden age. As much as I hate to say it, I think the best example that this industry needs to follow creatively, not legally, is Nintendo. Outside of how shamelessly they've been phoning in the Pokemon series, they have remained the same company for decades. The same identity, the same focus, the same creative voice. They have ignored aging audiences. They have ignored whatever trends the rest of the industry is chasing, and they have laughed their way to the bank while everybody else has been scrambling to survive. And it works so simply. They have built the perfect model for an overseas publisher. Nintendo is split into Nintendo Japan and Nintendo America. The American side handles the publishing, marketing, localization, customer support, all surface level necessities of a Western presence. But every ounce of creativity, every major design, every game that defines their identity is made in Japan. That structure lets them rely on the people they trust in the West to be able to promote their games while keeping their culture, their artistry, and their vision isolated from all of the noise. And now this is where my stance might rub people the wrong way, but I think it's the truth. I am a cultural essentialist. I think that collaboration can produce some incredible things, sure, but cultural expression, the real stuff, the stuff that really lasts, comes from a unified culture of making something for yourself, not for the world at large. The broader your target audience becomes, the more your creative voice gets lost, and once it's diluted, it's gone. And right now, one of the biggest problems in game design today is that dilution, that flattening, that desperate attempt to try to appeal to anyone and everyone and end up appealing to no one. You can feel the consequences of this everywhere. You feel it when the best JRPG in the past decade comes from France instead of Japan. You feel it when Final Fantasy convinces themselves that younger generations don't care about anything other than action games and rewrite their entire creative signature to be able to match a belief that isn't even grounded in reality. You see it across this entire industry. Identity is being muted, culture is being blurred out, and every major franchise is starting to feel like a remix of the same ideas, the same influences and the same values. When I look at the biggest Eastern titles over the last couple of years, I think that the reason why these games resonated so deeply is because they didn't feel like Western games. They didn't try to. They represented a cultural worldview that was completely outside of our own. And because of that, everybody wanted to play it. They pushed against the grain of what the Western industry has been insisting games actually should be, even though we've been telling them it's exactly what they shouldn't be. Take Stellar Blade. There is no shot anyone in the West is going to make a character that looks like Eve or even half the other women that are in that game. And we know that's the case because almost every Western reviewer had something negative to say about it. Not because the game was bad, but because the character designs didn't align with their personal values. They then misrepresented its quality. They lectured the audience and they were shocked when players loved it anyway. Then you got Black Myth Wukong, a game that took the world by storm. Western media dragged it too, and again, it didn't matter. None of those voices, none of those noises mattered. What only mattered was how the players received the game, and the players saw something that they had never experienced before, a window into one of the oldest cultures on Earth, based on a story older than most languages, wrapped in style and tone that nobody else could replicate. Sure, it shares some DNA with some third-person action games, but that was the only familiar thing about it. And it's not just those two. Metaphor ReFantazio, Lies of P, Persona, Digimon Time Strangers, Granblue Fantasy Relink. God, I love that game. Elden Ring, Armored Core 6. God, I love that one too. You can throw the gacha games into this pile. The reason why these games have succeeded and why they've continued to succeed is because they have something that the West has completely lost. A distinct, unfiltered creative voice. There is something unique and irreplaceable about these games, a perspective that we can't find anywhere else because it comes straight from the heart of that culture that made them. No dilution, no moral committees, no value laundering, just an unadulterated vision, fully expressed with no apologies and no compromises. And players respond to that because we can feel that authenticity, even when we can't articulate it all the way. We know when a game is speaking with its own voice and when it's speaking with somebody else's. I just think that everybody needs to get out of everybody else's business and the world would be a better place, and so would video games. LD for President 2028. That's my campaign. Hopefully I don't sound like too much of a tool when I say something like this, but you know, this is something that I think extends to just about every country and every creative vision that's out there. I wish American games would go back to being about bros. You guys remember that? It was bros with swords. We had bros with cars and bros with guns, swords, and cars. I miss when blood feuds could only be solved through violence and not friendship and hugs at the very end. I don't need games to have a moral of the story. There doesn't have to be any morals at all. I just want it to be badass. I think that Space Marine 2 proved that pretty well. You know, when I'm talking about some of these Eastern games, I'm not just talking about Japan. It also extends to Eastern Europe. It also just extends to Europe overall in some cases. I mean, Stalker 2, for all the problems that game had, it was the most Eurojank Ukrainian game ever, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Kingdom Come Deliverance, that Blood of the Dawnwalker game that's going to come from the CD Projekt Red guys that left, that one looks really cool. Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon. Dude, game was awesome. That's the most European game ever. I need that shit. I want more of that. Give me more of that. I think the best way for this industry to get back to some of the best days that we've ever seen before is for them just to isolate themselves, hide yourself from the noise and people that are trying to influence you into whatever direction they're trying to push you. Players appreciate an authentic voice. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for right now. It's what sets you apart from your competition. It's what makes you stand out in a lot of cases. And I'm not of the mind that anybody needs to pander to the Western audience whatsoever. We are not a monolith. We never have been, for all I know, and we're definitely not one right now. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is just make a game that you want to play, make the game that you want to make, hedge your bets, and make sure that you're not spending too much money, and just hope for the best. That's all you can really do. I'm really interested to see where this all goes. I really am. These guys cutting jobs, taking a lot of money away from some of these Western guys. I mean, it costs them a lot of money to be able to develop here. And then you have all of the extra cultural baggage that's coming along with that. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I just don't see a reason in why anybody would want to come and develop games here. It's too expensive to do so, and there's just too many problems that you're going to have. So I think this is going to be a part of a much broader trend. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sony also go in this direction, or maybe another company. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm absolutely tired. I'm going to go to bed. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys on stream. This should come out on Friday. Share the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Peace.
Family, 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 family.